Welcome to Local Heroes, the podcast by the London Optimist, where we celebrate the people making a real difference in our city. From community leaders to charity champions, these are the stories of those shaping a better London. Join me, Daniel Tison, as we shine a light on the everyday heroes among us. Today I'm speaking with Margaret Archibald, who is the founder of Everyone Matters. Could you tell me a bit about your journey into music and what inspired you to start Everyone Matters?
Okay, well, my journey into music started when I was tiny, and we always sang everywhere in the back of the car. And my grandparents sang and played instruments. And we used to tease my dad. We used to say he played the gramophone, which he did very excellently. And so there was always a lot of music going on. And I learned recorder when I was 9. Was very inspired to learn the oboe when I went to secondary school, and there wasn't an oboe teacher, but there was a clarinet teacher. So funnily enough, being impatient, I learnt the clarinet, and that became quite quickly obviously the thing that I was going to do. But I also sang a lot, and that's what I really wanted to do. So I spent a lot of time and effort trying to be a singer, and ended up being a better clarinet player. So that's what I really did. Then very early in my career, started playing with London Mozart players, and played a lot under Harry Blech, who founded it in 1949. And then I became a member when Jane Glover took over from Harry Blech in about 1986. And the thing that really transformed my career, I suppose, that I'd always been interested in, was this move to be obsessed with what's called outreach work. So music in schools, music in care homes, taking music out to people who maybe can't readily access it themselves, or, just trying to engage people with the classical music that as orchestral players we were so passionate about. And that came about because in 1989, London Mozart Players was invited to be resident orchestra in the borough of Croydon in London. Mm-hmm. And we'd played for decades since it was built in the Fairfield Halls, Croydon. So Louise Honeyman was the manager of the orchestra then, and she didn't want the residency to mean no more than just the concerts we did anyway in the Fairfield Halls. She was determined to reach out into the community, so she started looking for sponsorship, and she found major sponsorship from Nestlé, whose English headquarters were directly opposite the Fairfield Halls in Croydon. And they said, wonderful idea, and they supported the orchestra for 18 years. And to start with, work in Croydon, in care homes and in schools, and then ultimately all around the UK in primary schools and kids clubs, and then also in later in another project in youth clubs. I was invited in 1989 to set up the education and community work of the first year of the London Mozart Players residency in Croydon. And I became very obsessed with it, very excited about it all. And I set it all up and then ran it for 21 years while I was still a clarinet player in the orchestra. Mm-hmm. And it became completely my life. It's dominated everything. And then after those 21 years, my time with the LMP came to an end, and I didn't want to stop doing that kind of work because I just loved it so much. And so the mother of a pupil of mine who'd been a company lawyer when she was working, she gave me lots of advice about how to set up a company. And we set up Everyone Matters as a limited company in November 2010. And then we had a grant from Jess's Fund to do some work in special needs schools. We did 2 schools in Croydon, 2 schools in the Royal Borough of Kingston upon Thames. And that got us over the financial threshold to be eligible to apply to the Charity Commission of England and Wales for registration. And we became a registered charity in August 2011. So that was quite quick, actually, after setting up the company. And I've just tried to keep the show on the road ever since. So trying to look for funding, which is the tricky bit, to enable us to take professional musicians at a very high level of musical performance into care homes and day centres, leading workshops in special needs schools. I run a lot of intergenerational projects. Mostly it's been in Bromley, but some in Croydon. And I also run similar projects, but with adults. So working alongside adult amateurs. And I coach at Benslow Music in Hitchin. So we've got a lovely relationship with Hitchin, where I've even run courses at Benslow since 2013 for amateur musicians who are interested in this concept of not just going and playing together for fun, but going and playing together in order to get to a standard that other people will enjoy. You know, we want it to be in tune and nicely phrased and, you know, properly played, and to take that into Hitchin care homes. And recently we've had some support from the Hitchin Priory Rotary Club, who've got very excited about what we do up there. And we also run a lecture recital series that I took over from Mozart Players. We had one last night. And the lecture recital series is called Music Matters. And I try and link the evening lecture recital to some daytime concerts in care homes so that I can pay the musicians a nice global fee for the day, but it's not too horribly expensive for us to put on the evening Music Matters. It's like a small music club, really. And that's been going since 1989. And some of the people have been coming almost since 1989. And one of the care homes we go to regularly in Croydon has hosted it since I relaunched it under Everyone Matters. It started with London Mozart Players, and then in 2009, the orchestra decided it couldn't afford it anymore. And then when I set up Everyone Matters, I'd been missing it. A lot of the people who liked to come had been missing it. So I just relaunched it. And so we've been keeping it going, apart from COVID, of course. And then during COVID, because I couldn't do any live performances anywhere, one of the heads of music locally, a wonderful guy called David Bullen, with whom I do lots of intergenerational projects, he rang me up almost as soon as lockdown was announced and said, would I like him to invite some of his youngsters to send me recordings they would make in their bedrooms of themselves playing the violin or the flute or whatever it was. These were boys who'd taken part in our intergenerational September music cocktail only a few months previously. So he organised that, and that got us launched on sending out videos to care homes and to our friends. And so throughout lockdown, in the end, we sent out about 50 videos, some that I got funding from the National Lottery to do some professional recordings. I had youngsters like those first ones send me stuff, and also some of my colleagues gave me recordings they'd made. And so we sent out a lot in the end. And they were mostly sent out on YouTube, and a lot of them are still on YouTube because we started our own Everyone Matters Music YouTube channel at that time. And then there was no point taking it down. So we've just left everything up there. And I've got a catalogue of freely available videos. Anyone can access them. And they're a nice way of welcoming new friends or sending out to care homes and day centres and so on and so on. That's a very long answer to a short question.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed listening to it. So if I'm correct here, Everyone Matters is celebrating 15 years, right?
Yeah, pretty much. So 2010 to 2025. Yeah. So this November will be the 15-year anniversary of.
It's an incredible milestone.
Yeah, it's pretty. I'm pleased,
really
especially with COVID. You know, it was like, oh, can we sustain this? And since COVID, it's been very difficult, especially with everything being so challenging financially for everybody.
Yes.
Keeping a little charity like this going is quite a battle. But I've had some very inspiring sessions recently through Bromley Growth Builder. They took me on, and I've had some wonderful sessions with a range of different mentors, including the wonderful Dean Williams at Goldsmiths University in London. And I find him sort of inspiring and terrifying in equal measure, because whatever I feel I've learned, I feel I'm just more and more feeling inadequate to the challenge. But it's really opened my eyes to trying to make Everyone Matters a business proposition if I possibly can, rather than just a charity that holds its hand out and says, please give us some money. So last Christmas, we launched our first ever merchandise, which is with a young artist, a young graffiti artist, who I've known since he was 5, and we moved to the house next door. But he's done some workshops for us. He did a video for us in lockdown, and he's taken images from murals that he's done in schools and places like that, and created last year's Robin Christmas card. And now, very recently, we've got some blank for your own message cards, and already a snowman Christmas card for this coming Christmas. And I'm just hoping to tiptoe towards strategies that will help Everyone Matters earn some money, because I'm very good at giving things away and not so good at selling them.
So how can people get involved and help?
Well, we've got a lovely group of trustees, and they all help in different ways. That's very nice. If people want to volunteer to help, I mean, I suppose the nitty gritty is if people want to lob £10 in our direction, or add a nought or two, better still, then obviously that's very welcome, because unfortunately, when you run any kind of enterprise like this, there's a lot of overheads you can't avoid. Obviously, also for amateur musicians who want to get involved, some of the schemes like the one we've done at Benslow are really lovely. But what I don't do is send people, just say, oh, you're a musician, off you go, because I feel very strongly that what I want to do is take to maybe someone with Alzheimer's, or a child with profound and multiple learning difficulties. I want to take them a standard of music making which you'd be proud to offer in the Wigmore Hall. I feel it's really, really, really important that you don't think, oh, I like playing this tune, that'll do for the care homes. They won't know if I play a few wrong notes. Well, they will actually. They might not be able to explain why they like this better than that. People aren't in a care home because they like a particular kind of music. They're in a care home because they're unwell. So you want to try and have something that everyone will enjoy at some point in your program, and you want to be engaging and to be chatty during the performance, and then stick around afterwards and chat to people over a cup of tea is incredibly important. And that's
sorry to interrupt. That was another thing I wanted to ask, actually, because your mission is to bring music to people of all ages and all abilities.
Yes.
So first, why is it important to do this? And then how do you adapt your workshops and performances to these people with dementia, for example, or learning disabilities or mobility challenges?
Okay, let's take the care homes for starters.
Of course.
If you're going into a care home, whether it's a group of really quite able older people with health problems, or a home where there's a high number of people with advanced levels of Alzheimer's or whatever, music is accessed by the brain in a different way to speech. And also it's very emotional, it's very immediate in its impact. I think, just on a rather technical level, make sure that if you're giving a concert in a care home rather than a workshop, most of what we do is concerts rather than workshops, although we have done those as well. It is to play for about 45 minutes to an hour, give or take, depending what seems to be going down well. But plenty of short items with lots of variety of period and mood and style, so that it's like your 100 best tunes kind of approach to program planning. And I think that tends to work quite well, and to do a mixture of familiar items and unfamiliar items. But I think the eye contact, the body language, the showing you're interested in them. You're not there to show off or just say, here's some music we like to play, and then you get on and play it and then you run. It's to try and use that music as a way of setting up those lines of communication, whether they're verbal or not. when we go into special needs schools, obviously the range of special needs is huge. From you almost don't notice that it is special needs to youngsters who are permanently in wheelchairs, have visual impairment, hearing impairment, a paraplegic, who can't even hold a beater, who have one-to-one care. And what we like to do in settings like that is try and involve the youngsters and the staff in, if you like, doing what we do, exploring the music, rehearsing the music, and bringing that music to a level of performance that we can all share. So the last few times I've been, for example, to Rutherford School in South Croydon, where they're very profoundly handicapped young children and young people, we try and follow that model. We work with small groups to start with, explore some music and engage the young people in being part of that music with something they can do assisted by their one-to-one carers. And I want everyone to enjoy it. So I think sometimes the carers have more fun than anybody else, which is great. Lovely to see. And it has to be quite simple stuff, but to involve them as much as we can, and then bring those groups together in the afternoon for a bit more rehearsal, and then have a sort of sharing performance at the end of the afternoon. And the last one I did was with Peter Nichols, who's a wonderful saxophone player, and he wrote a special Croydon South blues. Wow. And so we engaged every group in working up their own version of the Croydon South blues, and then we brought it all together for the sharing session at the end of the day.
That sounds lovely.
It's really good fun. Yeah, I can just lob some photos in your direction if you like. Yes, I've got some favourites, obviously. I've got some lovely intergenerational ones, like the lass who played cello with a pianist last night for Music Matters, and she went into 2 care homes earlier in the day. She's now just graduated from the Royal College of Music and joined the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra in the cello section. I met her when she was 12, and she came through Bromley Youth Music Trust to join in one of our major intergenerational projects. She met Julia Debrulé there, who was her then teacher for 6 years, who's a very long-standing colleague of mine who I love working with. And I've got these, I'll send you these. I've got these lovely photos of Anna playing her cello alongside Julia in a care home. And then the next photo is Anna and the young double bass player she was also playing with, bending over, chatting to 2 elderly ladies, looking up at them in armchairs, and they're sharing chocolate cake together, which was after the concert, which is, the whole thing I was saying about using the music as a catalyst for conversation is a good phrase.
And it's got a massive role in mental health as well, doesn't
it? Yes, because there's so much loneliness out there. And I'll never forget when I was still with Mozart players, going and playing in Brigstock Manor Day Centre. And we played a concert, and then I went and shared a cup of tea with this elderly Indian lady sitting in an armchair. And then before we left, I went round the room to shake hands with everybody and say, lovely to meet you and thank you for listening to our concert. And this lady I chatted to, she grasped me, pulled me towards her, and said fervently, "Thank you for talking to me."
Wow. That's something that stands out and confirms that what you do actually has meaning and really helps people.
And I remember playing in Amy Woodgate Centre, which is mental health and dementia in Kingston, and the manager there at that time contacting me afterwards saying how his son was raving about the fact that his mother, who could never remember what she'd had for breakfast, was still talking about our concert on the Saturday, and we'd been there on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, and she was deep in Alzheimer's, but she was still talking about that concert.
Wow.
So, the music, people will sing, and they'll sing all the words because the music has brought that back for them. I absolutely try so hard to not be patronizing when I go into a care home, you know, but it's fun to take in some percussion instruments. You have to be really careful that your audience group doesn't feel that you're treating them like 5-year-olds by handing out egg shakers or something. But I've done several performances recently in care homes where I've had quite a big group of performers, either youngsters like with Langley Park Boys School or amateurs like we had at Benslow, and we've done some calypsos. And of course, egg shakers are perfect for a calypso, you see. So I take in I've got a whole bag full with Burford Brown egg boxes, only they're not real eggs, they're plastic egg shakers.
Yeah.
So I get these egg boxes out and hand them round, and everybody has an egg, and then they join in with the calypso, and it's really good fun. And you
Yeah.
know, somebody who's really very, very sort of, you know, depressed with their condition will liven up. It's just lovely to see. And we all
Definitely.
laugh.
I love that. And looking ahead now, what are your future plans and goals for Everyone Matters?
Oh, well, as I said, I'm trying to get more businesslike so that I can keep us going. You can tell I'm not in the first flush of youth, so I'm starting to think about who's going to take this over because I don't want it to fold. I don't want to go to all this effort for 15 years and then have Everyone Matters just pack up, which is a risk. In the immediate future, I'm very interested in getting involved more in this. There's more of a movement now at last for using music as a tool in health contexts.
Yes.
And I would love to be more involved in that because it is such a wonderful tool. And music therapy has been a thing for a long, long time. But I think there's a role for therapeutic music making, which isn't your absolute real medical music therapy, which is a proper thing.
Yeah.
I don't think one should dismiss the role of lovely music played very beautifully. I don't think you always need to think you have to get people involved in playing themselves or creating music themselves. It's a lovely thing if you can, and some groups do it really, really well. It's something I've always been cautious about. It's difficult to do it really well. And I've seen how much joy it brings to just go and share your music with other people, and they haven't had to lift a percussion instrument or sing anything. If that's how it goes and they do and you want to and you involve people in that, I think that's absolutely lovely. And if you want to create a composition and you have people with real expertise, like when we did that jazz workshop with Peter, it was lovely. But I don't think it has to be the only way that you take your professional music out into the wider community.
No, I agree, and I love this kind of thinking. Lovely. Well, these are all my questions for you, but is there anything you would like to add?
Well, I've rabbited on, haven't I?
Yes. No, I mean, I really enjoyed listening to you. Sorry, I didn't mean it that way. No,
You press go.
no. No, I really enjoyed listening to you and learning about your organization and what you do. There's a lot to learn from you, actually. Thank you so much for your time today.
Well, fingers crossed, eh? Thank you ever so much. We'll keep in touch then.
Yes, of course. Okay. Thank you, Margaret. Have a lovely day.
Bye bye.